Welcome into the Sports Buffoons podcast. Welcome on in out there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of the world, back into the Sports Buffoon studios out here out of Lenexa, Kansas. It is Mike Settle running it with our boys, Tanner Dawson and Jason JG. What's up, fellas?
What's up, yo? What's up, yo? Still recovering from that last show that we just did.
I'm sure you're recovering so much.
Hey, you know, after that last one we did, Bush Lights some needed. And, you know, I just got to get a cold in. I got another one ready to go.
You got to keep it cold at all times.
Oh my lord, dude! That last one killed me. If you guys didn't check out our previous show just before this show, we did a hot sauce challenge featuring my brother-in-law Jordan. Kind of explained each sauce in a way, just giving the background, and then we all tried it as we were playing the game Weddle. Now that last part of it you can skip because that was a bad game. I don't know where I found it. So
yeah, too much research
so
online
bad.
for Tanner, to where you find random games that are full of crap. So,
hey, I was just trying. I got the first times. I tested it.
I will say I'm a little discouraged because I normally do better than that, and today's Weddles were pretty difficult. So
They actually were.
We did worse than I feel like normal.
Even
Normally,
the easy one was weird.
normally I do pretty damn good, but that was a rough one for sure.
It was a bittersweet game because although it cleaned out my sinuses, it also cleared off my cock, and it was very painful.
It was painful getting you rubbed hot sauce on your dick.
Yes, that was very painful, and I'm
Okay.
gonna try not to do any more coughing on this show.
I was wondering where all the hot sauce went because I saw them coming from the bottle, but I didn't see it going into your mouth. So it was all going onto your cock. Okay.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
That makes more sense to me
Lord.
about where
That's
that ended up
great.
because I didn't see it into your mouth hardly at all.
That was a mistake. I'm gonna
So-
put it in my mouth next time. That
Somehow
was a
you
big
You
mistake.
kept coughing though, so you were enjoying something down there.
How about everybody? You guys go watch it and tell us if Jason actually did it or not. Let us know.
All right, so yeah, watch Jason rat hole live on camera. Anyways, guys, with that said, you guys saw the thumbnail. So obviously we're talking Chiefs here today. NBA was covered between these two guys here on Monday night, so we're not going to dig too much into that today. But obviously minicamp now for the Kansas City Chiefs is underway, and we are now gone through day 2, and I think we have one more day to go. But then after that, guys, we have this long, depressing month of no football up until training camp. So
Yep.
that part is kind of bittersweet to see some Chiefs news currently out, but also knowing that we will get no news for at least another month, it seems like. So
Yeah. Do you need an update of what went on today?
do you have an update for us?
So Adam Teicher got on here. Said Chiefs minicamp practice number 2 is done. Rookie safety Brian Cook was one of the stars with 2 picks. Could have had a third, but he dropped it. One of those was against Mahomes in the back right corner, and I believe another one was Henny right after that. And then he ended up dropping a pass later on. So he's turned out to do really well. And also Pete Sweeney with attendance for minicamp day 2, not on the field. Orlando Brown Jr., Blake Bell, Frank Clark, who's having a baby today. That's why. Malik Herring, Rashad Fenton, Trent McDuffie, Jared McKinnon, Justin Ross, and Prince Tega Wanogo. I don't know how to say that. Wano, I guess. Present, but not on the field, was Lucas Nyane and cornerback Joshua Williams.
I did like this quote from Willie Gay today, actually. This was kind of funny, talking about working
Mahomes?
against Patrick Mahomes
Yeah,
in practice. And he did say, honestly, I treat all quarterbacks the same, but the good thing for me is my quarterback I feel is better than all of them. But that's not the quote that I'm liking the most. I like that he said at one point, Willie Gay got caught by a Mahomes no-look during Tuesday's practice, which led to Wednesday's quote of the day. He said, my defensive coach said I was eye-fucking the quarterback, looking at him too long. So speaking of that, guys, have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you were eye-fucking for too long and then maybe you got caught red-handed? Because Willie Gay sounds like Patrick Mahomes got him right red-handed, right where he needed to be for a no-look pass.
I don't think I've ever had that situation before.
Wow, okay. In all your time, never been happen.
No, I don't think so.
Wow, okay. Well, have you ever been accused of it?
No.
'Cause it seems like maybe Spagnuolo might have accused Willie Gay of these things. So
That's fair.
I can't relate to that, actually.
I don't know that I've ever been caught necessarily with what we're talking about here, but I've probably caught myself more than a few times. doing such things.
Oh,
So Patrick Mahomes would have definitely gave me a few no-lookers in my times. So
yeah, let's just keep talking.
Anyways, guys. So with all that said, obviously you guys saw the thumbnail as I said a minute ago. The Chiefs wide receivers are probably the primary focus of the training camp at the moment because we're trying to see who's going to stand out. Justin Ross, as you said, did not practice. And I think that's something to watch out for because this guy had all the hype in the world not too long ago. And now it's like, okay, not showing up to mini camp or able to practice, I should say, in mini camp.
Able to practice. He's there. He just can't practice.
And so, I think we do need to pump the brakes on some of the hype regarding around Justin Ross because there's people out there that are just on Twitter like, well, where's Justin Ross? Where's Justin Ross? It's like, guys, we'll be lucky if he gets anywhere close to making the team, nonetheless, a practice squad. And so, yeah, I'd like to have him show up and make the team because that would prove the Chiefs right in their acquisition of picking him up. But, there's also a lot of guys on this team because now with Tyreek Hill being gone, and we've heard a lot of discussions around him lately, we are working with Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Mecole Hardman, and Sky Moore are your top 4 receivers on this roster. So to me, it's one of those things where I'm not focused on guys like a Justin Ross. I'm focused more on these newcomers that are now part of this team that will be everyday rotational starters on this team. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
No, yeah. And Josh Gordon, he went down today, landing on his back, didn't practice the rest of the day. Doesn't sound like anything was wrong, just probably out of breath towards the end. But he's a guy that I believe Andy Reid came out and said that he did kind of went down, slimmed down a little bit. Looks a lot better and more comfortable with the playbook. So, I mean, that's a guy still that could be in the threat of getting on this roster still.
Yeah, so obviously I don't want to dig too much into the Tyreek Hill news that's come about here in the last few days, but I think something we should hit on for a second because it relates back to our team. So obviously looking at the situation the Chiefs have had with Tyreek Hill for the last few years, minus a Sammy Watkins on the roster, the Chiefs were looking at a team that just had Tyreek and Byron Pringle and then not much else to offer afterwards because obviously none of us like Demarcus Robinson, and Mecole Hardman has not been a consistent wide receiver on this team whatsoever. So now we're looking at a team where, yes, Mecole is still part of the roster, but I think you have a more well-rounded group walking into this season between a big physical receiver such as a Juju Smith-Schuster, who also can be a great blocker as well. Marquez Valdes-Scantling still provides to you that deep threat. And Sky Moore, I feel like, was a great addition for underneath routes and a guy that I think is going to be quick and can get open anything under 10 yards. So it brings a lot more versatility to the roster, whereas before you had one guy to rely on for everything, and then the other guys who were just literally random role players who would every once in a while step up.
Yep.
So obviously Tyreek's concerned about his notoriety, even though he says he's not. I mean, he cares a lot about being the face of a franchise, and he wanted to leave Kansas City because he was offered more money, but also it sounds like he had some jealousy towards Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes because those were the true faces of the franchise, where in Miami, he can obviously go do his own thing and be the guy over there, which, if that's what he's into, go for it. Go take your notoriety and have fun with all that, even while you lose more games than you ever have in your life. So anyways, so Jason, what are some of your thoughts on the Chiefs' current wide receiver rotation? And do you think that Josh Gordon has a chance to make the back end of this roster? Because I've heard, of course, mixed bags on the whole thing, but we saw him play a lot last year and do next to nothing. So is there a chance you think he could make this team?
I'm definitely pulling for Josh Gordon, and I hope he makes the team because I want to see a guy like that who, you look at his past, had one of the greatest seasons that we've ever seen in the NFL from the wide receiver position. So definitely pulling for him. But as a Chiefs fan, the thing that I'm most looking forward to is the fact that, the defenses aren't going to really know what to expect from the Chiefs this year. And so we're going to be moving the ball around, sort of spreading the wealth, if you will. And I think, in previous years, defenses have always tried to just kind of try to stop Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. And we, from a defensive perspective, teams already knew that those were the go-to guys. Well, they don't really have a clue what the Chiefs are going to try to do this year. And I think that will really give us an advantage, especially early in the season, as far as, Patrick Mahomes spreading the ball around. That's actually going to help Patrick Mahomes in his development as well, because he's not going to be trying to force feed any one player. But I think as a whole, the wide receiver room for the Chiefs this year is going to be severely underrated. And I think people are going to be surprised as far as what we see these wide receivers accomplish this year.
I think it'll make Mahomes even more of a well-rounded quarterback. And we've seen his progression over the years now in maturity, dealing with different things to come across. When defenses moved to a too high safety against the Chiefs, Mahomes had to kind of relearn how to run an offense in a way, and he picked up on it pretty quickly. But with that said, he still had to teach himself, okay, I understand the deep ball is not going to be there. I got to play the underneath game. And in his own words, he said at one point, basically, he's got to, he doesn't enjoy playing it that way, but he kind of has to, and it's boring. He thinks it's boring to play the short game, which that's fine, man. I'd much rather him be bored playing the short game than a guy like an Alex Smith who that's all he knew and was terrified to go deep. So, but otherwise, I think Jody Fortson was a guy in training camp today that apparently stood out and caught a touchdown there in 7-on-7 drills.
Recovering from that Achilles injury, he came out, he caught he went up to get one. So that was kind of nice to see him being able to still work back from that injury, but still be effective as he comes back.
Yeah, I think he should be, if he's healthy all year, a big part of the offense, as a matter of fact, and an easy guy to throw in there to give Kelsey a rest here and there if needed. And he's a better athlete than Noah Gray. So I would actually much rather have a Jody Fortson stand out and make plays for this team. And, I don't want him to turn into Bigfoot, essentially, where, we have all this hype and we hear all about him. And then, he's got a total of like 3 career catches.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we obviously have high hopes for him, even as he's getting older now. A wide receiver transitioned to a tight end body. And I want to see this now. I'll put out there a full season's worth of great play. This is a Darren Waller in the making. And Darren Waller, if you guys aren't sure, was a former wide receiver at Georgia Tech and ended up transitioning to tight end and is now, when healthy, one of the top 5 tight ends in the NFL. I think Jody Fortson could have that same type of ability. And even though he's kind of a late bloomer, when he's healthy, the guy is a phenomenal athlete and will absolutely help out this offense, especially in 2 tight end sets. So anyways, I'm looking forward to see how that unfolds. So what other things in training camp, guys, or so far, or mini camp, I should say, have stood out to you, if anything? And what's on your mind? Because obviously, Jerick McKinnon was signed back to the roster since we last talked Chiefs.
Yep.
And so that just adds more depth. I don't have a problem with McKinnon being on this roster.
No, did we carry 4 last year, running backs?
I believe so.
I think because Derek Carr was the 4th. Yeah. It was Clyde, McKinnon, who am I thinking? Williams, and then Gore. Yeah, so 4.
It's always a committee.
Yeah,
I mean, Andy Reid likes to run that committee kind of approach, I think.
Yeah, which I'm fine with. It'll be kind of interesting to see how our rookie does, Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
So see how he comes along and if he overtakes Gore or anybody else like that, or really impresses come training camp. But I'm not too worried about the running back group. It was kind of interesting though. I saw some reports that we did see Ronald Jones and Edwards, Clyde, take a lot of the passing reps into play. So that'd be, that's something to think about come fantasy football time.
Are you saying, hold on, did you say Ronald Jones and Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Yeah.
Took most of the passing reps?
Took most of the passing reps.
Yeah. Those two should be the 2 top.
And then once Jerick gets in, I don't think Jerick was in today. But Jerick will be in here, I think, maybe not till training camp, but he's going to be right there with it. He's still a triple threat there. Yeah,
the issue with McKinnon, I know a lot of people out there seem to like him, and a lot of people are overlooking Ronald Jones. But what people like about McKinnon, I think, is they see some explosion out of him. You got to remember, he's 30 years old. He's always been fast. That's never been an issue with McKinnon. He's played with the Vikings, played with the 49ers, now the Chiefs. Always been fast, and he's undersized, gets injured frequently, does have somewhat of a fumbling problem in the history. But there's nothing to be excited. There's nothing to look at this guy and go, oh, he's going to be a 1,000-yard total per scrimmage player. Now, can he be a change of pace back? Absolutely. But when you guys have a Ronald Jones in front of you, who it was just 2 years ago, had a great season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, averaging over 5 yards a carry. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, obviously, they're still trying to get the most out of him that they possibly can. you got two guys in front of you there that they're going to be taking a lot of snaps away from you. So I think McKinnon's situation, fine to throw him in there every once in a while, but don't expect him to be the lead back. His re-signing is by no means anything regarding how this season unfolds or what the plans are for the rest of this team.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. Another thing to that kind of popped up to this camp here is Chris Jones. He was playing a little bit of defensive end and defensive tackle, and they're mixing packages. So Chris Jones, you mentioned, talked about last year with, playing DN and how it was a much bigger change than he anticipated, and the experience he came with that he can use that at the D tackle position. And this year, him and Spags, I guess, have been talking that Chris Jones could be used at certain situations against certain kind of tackles at the DN spot to mix in packages as well. So I'm okay with that. If it's gonna be like a mix and not like he's gonna play mainly D tackle and then mix in on the outside, I'm cool with that. Yeah. Like we don't need him to be full DN, but that's kind of a nice thing to see. And then also our young guys out there in the secondary, Brian Cook, Jalen Watson had an interception today. And then let's see here, Joshua Williams, another rookie that we signed. He had a great interception today too. So like those guys are out making plays and they're flying around.
Yeah, it should be situational with Chris Jones, and I'm not sure how great of shape he's in at the moment. I think from what I've heard, he's in pretty good shape.
I heard he's pretty good shape.
So that's obviously good news regardless. But I do like him the most on the interior, and I hope it stays that way for at least 90% of the snaps. Now, when it comes to like third down, 3rd and 10, stuff like that, then sure, put him outside if you feel like it makes sense going against, as you said, certain tackles in that situation. Because I'm looking at this roster right now, and Frank Clark, we already know what to expect out of that guy. George Karlaftis, I don't have high hopes for in year one at all. With that said, I still have a big issue with edge rush on this team. And I'm now looking at a situation where Chicago Bears have a defensive end, Robert Quinn, who's 32 years old and is wanting to get out of there and wanting to be traded. He's got probably 2 years left, or maybe 3 years left at the most, to play in this league. Do you think it would be viable for the Chiefs to make a push for a guy like that, especially considering the fact Melvin Ingram was once in the plans to be retained and now is gone, obviously, to the Dolphins?
I would say you have to make a move like that and go out and get a guy like Robert Quinn, because I believe that the Chiefs had a really good draft this year, and I think they've got some guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that are going to be ready to contribute in year one. And you've already got Willie Gay, Nick Bolton, guys that, already made a great impact in their first year. And I think, when you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, you are always ready to win now. So this isn't a situation where, maybe we'll just, try to make a run 2 years from now or 3 years from now. No, you got to win now. And because when that guy is on the field, you got to improve the roster at all costs. And so that's why I think as long as they can fit him under that salary cap, you have to make a move for Robert Quinn, because obviously that defensive line is the weakest part of the roster on the defensive side of the ball. And so, I think they have to make a move for a guy like that.
I also want to point out Robert Quinn has had double-digit sacks 5 times now in his career and had 18.5 sacks last year.
I mean, he's coming off such a solid year last year and being part of that defensive line there. I could see Robert Quinn stepping right into Melvin Ingram and almost doing better.
He would be better than Melvin Ingram.
He would easily be better. And then that would actually open up Chris Jones to stay more inside and then maybe switch out with Frank Clark on the other side too. So it actually would help Chris Jones out, who is probably top 3 defensive tackles currently in the NFL, to be able to do that. And I think Robert Quinn would step right up into that.
I just hope that we're not done massaging the roster.
I don't think we are.
Just like Jason was massaging some hot sauce onto his cock, I want to make sure that Brett Veach is still massaging good defensive ends into plays for this team.
Well, the thing about Frank Clark is, like, I know there's a lot of Frank Clark haters out there, and he could actually still have a good year. Like, I'm not of the opinion that he's going to have a great year, but he could have a decent year. But he's not the type of guy that you're going to depend on. And that's why you need to bring in a guy like Robert Quinn. So, like, I'm not just going to sit here and stand pat and be like, oh, no, you're not just going to take what we have right now to the table. You have arguably the best quarterback in the NFL right now. You have to support that, and you have to bring in whatever you can to make that roster better, especially on the defensive line.
Yeah. Well, I was listening yesterday during some of the live press conferences, and we got Juan Thornhill up there to the podium, and he seemed in very good spirits. I mean, obviously very confident, probably more confident than I've ever seen him speak in the past.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was about his energy up there, but he felt like he was feeling good. He was in command of his thoughts, I would say.
I feel like now that Tyron's gone, it was grooming him.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think he's coming to realization he's now the leader of this defense. And I think he's comfortable with that, obviously, as we saw.
He's a veteran presence at this point
Yeah.
now, and he's also, I think, about to turn 26, 27. So contract year coming up for Juan Thornhill, but he's a guy we saw his rookie year play very, very well, and in the past 2 years has been underwhelming at times, but never really stood out in a lot of games. But I still like his athleticism. I still think he's a good player, honestly, in this league. But he does need to become an impact player,
Yes.
which is something he was referring to in his press conference, because he talked about how this is going to be an all-pro year for him. And I'm not saying it is or isn't, but I'm going to say that's a very confident remark that I have no problem with anyone on my team having that kind of expectation for. So I'm cool with him having those, whether you want to believe it's illogical or, delusional type of beliefs. I think that it's a great thing to have, and he needs to go out there now and prove it, at this point. And he's got guys behind him there. Brian Cook obviously is now part of this roster. He's going to be a big part of this. Chiefs obviously just added another great safety there in free agency. So there's depth there at that position.
Deion Bush is there.
Deion Bush, of course, there, which is a great special teamer that could rotate in at times at safety.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he's going to have options there to do different things. So really, he does need to play at a very high level for him to stay on the field because, as we just heard, Brian Cook had 2 interceptions in today's
almost
practice.
Almost a third.
And if you guys out there have not seen my highlight video of Brian Cook that I put out a month ago, then check that out because the guy is a great, energetic leader type of a player, as a matter of fact. So even if Juan Thornhill leaves this coming season, I think Cook can come in and become that vocal guy and become a dominant force on the defense for sure.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. I fully agree with you. It's Juan Thornhill of the old needs to come out. What we saw in the rookie year before his injury.
Yeah. What do you think, Jason?
I would say with Juan Thornhill, I agree with you, Mike. I think that's a little bit delusional to say that he's going to be an all-pro, but I'm all for it, him coming out and saying that, because whatever you need for motivation as an individual player, you should just go ahead and say that, because obviously that's a check that he wrote that's going to be very, very difficult to cash. But if that's what he needs is motivation, then by all means, I love to hear things like that from individual players.
Right.
But that's very different because, we talked about Steve Kerr earlier today, Mike, the fact that the coach of the Warriors came out and said, we are going to win this series in Boston. Well, now all of a sudden you're writing a check that the whole team has to cash. And I've got, that's a little bit different story, but as far as Juan Thornhill is concerned, I have no problem with it. I'm happy that he said it. And I hope that, even though I don't think he'll be an all-pro, I think that the fact that he said that, it will give him the motivation that he needs to really come through for the team.
Yeah, and I think the mentality that's coming out of play is his best state of mentality since he's come on the Chiefs since his rookie year.
Yeah.
He's been down ever since this injury. He struggled the year he came back, and it just hasn't been right. And you could tell in his swag, you could say, that he's just not in the mental state right. And I think this year we're finally seeing Juan Thornhill that came out of the draft in that mental state of, hey, it's time to put up or shut up, essentially.
Yeah, and I had a friend I talked with actually this past weekend talking about the impact of Tyrann Mathieu and being the leader of the defense and now leaving the team, who now replaces that kind of a role. And I had another friend as well kind of chime in and say something to the effect of other guys literally step up in that role when it comes time, and they realize, okay, now it's their time to become that type of a leader.
Yep.
Which is that's a lot of times how it works. Yes, a lot of times veteran presence works. Chris Jones technically could be the next, the leader of the defense at this point, but also what's stopping Willie Gay or Nick Bolton from taking that role? What's stopping a Juan Thornhill right now from taking over?
Sneed.
And L'Jarius Sneed, of course, taking over those kinds of roles. And seeing now that because your leader, your supposed leader, Tyrann Mathieu, is now removed from the team, other guys see a hole to now fill regarding there was a void there. Now we have to make sure that guys know, hey, what the expectations are, and to get everybody prepared for games and aligned correctly.
Or maybe even a guy that came in and who was the leader of his own defense, Justin Reed, coming in and played. The guy played with Tyrann, right? He played with them, I think, his rookie year.
Yeah. But what's the thing? When you lose a leader, you don't just lose a leader. That's not game over.
No.
Then there's no more leaders. It's someone else now sees an opportunity to step in and now become more vocal, because you have situations where guys do reserve themselves when they see another top dog doing all the talking and getting things corralled, because they don't feel the need or pressure to put themselves in that spot. But as soon as there's a void there, they know they can now unleash and let out their inner alpha.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Of being the controller and the leader of their organization. So that's sports, guys. That's the way sports work. It doesn't matter if it's baseball, football, hockey, Avalanche playing right now. If their best player goes down, trust me, someone else steps in to try to take over that role.
I will promise you one thing. Frank Clark will not be the leader of this defense.
That is true.
I can promise you that. Take it to the bank.
That is true. That's a good bet. If there's a bet on Bovada about that, I would love to lay down my whole bank account that he will not be the leader.
Your life savings, dude.
That's the one JG wins.
Going forward. Absolutely correct.
Exactly.
So, speaking of that, JG, I think you had another topic that you wanted to discuss here for a few minutes. And go ahead and let me know your feelings on what you were talking about a little bit ago.
Yeah, so we're talking about Steve Kerr and the fact that he came out and said after that last game when the Warriors won Game 5, he told his team that we are going to win this thing in Boston. So those were his exact words. And so, we talked about Juan Thornhill a little bit earlier as far as from an individual perspective, but I want to know you guys' opinion on when a player or coach comes out and says something like that, not necessarily guaranteeing a win, but when a coach or a player puts pressure on the rest of that group to come through on a specific game. Do you guys necessarily agree with that? Because that takes a lot of mental fortitude, as I stated earlier, to try to cash the check that somebody else wrote. So Steve Kerr is putting a lot of pressure on his team to try to do that. And, that's Steve Kerr has been around for a while. He's going to be a Hall of Fame coach someday because he's got plenty of championships. But I just wanted to know, in general, do you guys agree with that, kind of perspective where we guarantee that certain things are going to happen in sports? Either, whether you're talking about a player or a coach coming out and saying things like that, where the media can come out and just kind of, attack that player or that team. Do you think that puts too much pressure on a team when that happens, or do you think it's more of a motivational thing and it's a positive thing for that team to come through in the clutch?
I think it's motivational and positive. I would not take that into an account as negative by any means. He's basically saying, hey, I believe in you guys to execute and get this job done no matter where we're at, whether it's Boston or Golden State. But I believe in you guys to execute, get this done, and then let's go celebrate. We're not even thinking of a loss. Don't even worry about it. So I think it's a positive. I think it's encouragement, and I think it's belief that helps within that statement.
And I think it's just kind of a situational thing. I think for Steve Kerr and the Warriors, a team that has been there and done that multiple times, I think that sort of mentality or strategy can work in that case. But I think that in other cases, as we've seen throughout history, it can also be a bad thing where a player comes out and says, we are going to win this game. Like, I guarantee it. And then it can end up biting them in the ass. But I think it depends on sort of the experience in terms of the team. And I think the Warriors have so much experience where I kind of agree with you, Tanner. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing that he said that. But what do you think about that, Mike?
In general, I don't like it. Whenever a coach or even a player for that matter comes out and makes guarantees about their statistics. I mean, even a year ago, Tyrann Mathieu was talking about leading the NFL in interceptions. It worked at one point when Chad Johnson in 2003 said after the Chiefs were 9-0 that the Bengals were going to beat the Chiefs, and it happened. They ended the Chiefs 9-0 run. Chiefs then ended up going 13-3 and losing in the playoffs to the Colts in that year. Now, Chad Johnson was correct about that. That was some confidence mixed with cockiness, as well as going out on a limb as a young player to make a statement about his belief in his team. But I don't care for coaches going out there on the podium and making these bold statements about what the expectations are, what is going to happen with their team, whether it's record or whether it's we're going to have the best defense, best offense, whatsoever. I just don't think it's fair to the subjectiveness of the outcome of the situation for the players, because you never know what's going to happen with your team. You never know what kind of injuries you could run into. You never know what kind of turmoil you could run into. I much more would rather live through humility and that underdog approach. I mean, have you ever seen Bill Belichick go out there and make a guarantee of anything? No, he just goes out there and kicks ass.
Have you even heard Tom Brady say it?
Tom Brady? Well, Tom Brady still likes that underdog approach where he thinks that everyone's out to get him. So he feels like he's got to have something to prove at all times.
Yeah, you're going to make fun of the guys that you know it's not going to come true, right? So, like, guys are like, oh, I'm going to win the MVP.
Okay, but like a Juan Thornhill saying he's going to be the all-pro, is that something you're going to make fun of him for?
I'm not going to make fun of him for that.
I'm saying, like, I love that mentality.
It's a good mentality.
But I don't like my coach going out there and saying, oh, Juan Thornhill's going to be an all-pro. I'd rather Juan Thornhill believe in that himself, but we don't need to talk about it. Don't talk about it, be about it. And that's what I believe in when it comes to sports and athletics is I don't want to hear what you're going to do. I want you to go do it.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, Mike, in terms of, in general, not wanting to guarantee wins and things of that nature and putting pressure on your teammates and everything else. But I think in this case with Steve Kerr, I don't necessarily know that he knew that he was I don't think he knew he was on a hot mic. I think all of that happened organically. And I think that he was just speaking to his team and saying, hey, guys, this is something that we are going to do. Not necessarily to motivate them, but just to say, hey, you know, we are good enough to do this. And I don't necessarily think that he knew that he was going to be on a hot mic and that the media would be hearing all this stuff. I think this was more of something that was, I think he felt like this was a private moment with his team.
Which,
and if that's the
if
case,
you do that in
then
private, then that's great. There's nothing wrong with
that. But that was in the locker room.
So
and
yeah,
I was going to say,
was this like post game?
Yeah, it was post game in the locker room.
Okay.
And I think he really thought that this was a private moment.
You're sitting there, you're pumping your team up essentially. Say, hey, let's get the same mentality and let's go out there and let's get this next game.
Whenever you're down to a team, go in the locker room and tell you that you're better than this.
Yeah.
I mean, every coach has done that at some point in their career to you. So that's a normal thing. That's not having a giant ego about yourself or getting the cart before the horse.
No. If he was in a press conference and said that, then yeah, I would be like, all right, dude. Like, now you're putting really a lot of pressure. But if you're just in front of your team in a locker room deal like they do post game,
I didn't really care for the whole Mahomes last year talking about going 17-0.
Yeah.
I don't like that kind of stuff. I understand where it comes from. I understand what his point was. He feels that confident in his, potential as a team and within himself. I get that. But we don't need to go out there and set those expectations, because when's the last time a team went 17-0? It was the Patriots, of course, going into the playoffs. They went 16-0, then won a few more games, lost in the Super Bowl.
Lost to the Giants.
Otherwise, you're looking at
helmet catch.
You're looking at the Miami Dolphins in 72. Like 17-0, especially in a league like today's.
Especially when you probably cheated.
It doesn't
to go 17-0. Because it's the Patriots.
Yeah,
they probably cheated.
It's just it's not likely. You have to play perfect to go undefeated in sports. So it's not a thing that I like anyone going out there and saying as well.
I do think that the Warriors have a chance to win this game. I mean, I changed my opinion as the series evolved. I had the Warriors winning the whole time. At first it was 6. Now I think it's going to be 7. But I just have to give the Celtics credit here. I don't think they're going to go down without a fight, no matter what Steve Kerr said in that post-game speech in the locker room. I just the Celtics are just too good to go down without a fight, especially to lose on their home court.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to stick with the Warriors in 7 because, I mean, the Celtics are just too good. I mean, Steph Curry is going to bounce back. So I do expect a bounce back game from Curry. And, the Warriors are going to win the series, in my opinion. But, I just don't. I'm not going to be surprised if the Warriors close this out in 6. But my money would be on Boston to win at home for Game 6.
Yeah. Here's why Boston wins Game 6. It's consistency. And there's 2 guys on the Celtics that are really consistent all series long. And there's 1 guy on the Warriors that are consistent all day long, right? I take the 2 guys over the 1 guy to win instead of them winning third game in a row with Golden State. I'm going to go with Celtics to win that next game. But when it comes to basically die or win, I'm going Golden State. I'm expecting the veterans for Golden State to step up that last game in order to win.
So you do have Boston winning Game
I have
6?
Boston winning Game 6.
Yeah.
Just because of this fact that, Tatum and Jalen are not going down without a fight.
Yeah, and I would say my biggest concern for Boston in Game 6 is the fact that they're going to try to be very physical in much the same way that Memphis was physical when they played the Warriors, because it's do or die for them. And my problem with that strategy for Boston is it's quite possible they can get in foul trouble early by being too physical. And I know when you look at these series, NBA finals, when you get later in the series, the referees don't like to call fouls. But, if they get really physical in Game 6, I think the refs are going to blow the whistle. And I think you could see a scenario where Boston gets into foul trouble and then they get tired at the end and depleted, players potentially fouling out. And that would be my biggest concern. I think they're going to pull it off, Boston, in Game 6, but they really got to work hard to, A, not turn the ball over, which has kind of been their biggest issue throughout the entire playoffs, and then B, just play great defense without getting into foul trouble. If they can do those 2 things, I mean, that's, to me, Boston's going to win. But they've got to do both of those things.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, before we get out here, guys, do you guys notice that Big Dawes TV fake Klay Thompson going out there on YouTube?
Amazing.
He posted it up on YouTube. I think it was either today or yesterday.
It was on TikTok.
Yeah, he got kicked out of the Golden State arena because he looks just like Klay Thompson and just walked in. Security let him go by, and then he shot around the court for a few
10
minutes. I watched the whole YouTube video just earlier today. And
it's so epic.
That guy is awesome. He's actually from Kansas City, so he's a guy I've been following on YouTube for a long time. He does a lot of pranks. He does things where like he's handing out money to strangers, stuff like that. And he's somebody that I think would be super cool to eventually chat with. So maybe we could find a way to get his contact info, slide in the DM.
Yeah,
or something.
but now he's banned from Golden State, and he didn't get his $4,000 or $10,000 or something like that back.
Yeah, he paid $10,000 for the tickets, and they didn't refund it. And he's banned for life. I think that's a terrible thing, because I think that was probably one of the greatest experiences of his life, to be able to warm up on the court where the players warm up. But I mean, I think I would probably appeal that at the Supreme Court, and maybe you can get one of O.J. Simpson's old lawyers, if they're still alive, to represent you, because I think they should overturn that and let him one day be able to attend Golden State Warriors teams, because he's obvious Golden State games, because I think he's obviously a great fan.
Well, I would just say, about this situation, they accused him of trespassing, but how is it trespassing when they allowed you in?
They let him in.
Security guards allowed him to go in, even told him he was, hey, Klay, everyone thought he was Klay Thompson. He just walks in. He didn't even say a word.
Why would you ban somebody for life who is a true fan of the team? That just doesn't make any sense to me. He doesn't cause harm. He didn't cause harm to anybody.
Go talk
He
to
was
the
never
Knicks.
a threat.
Go talk to them.
Well, and then when they asked him to leave, he walked right out. No big deal. You know, I wouldn't ban him
It's
for
a James
life.
Dolan deal right there, dude.
I think it might be.
That's Dolan right there.
I think it might be a charging foul that might eventually be overturned to a blocking foul. So they might overturn that someday.
Just blame California.
Yeah, well, or San Francisco for that matter.
Yeah, that's too bad. But anyways, guys, that was pretty funny. So
That's great.
anyways, any final thoughts before we get out of here, guys? I am still sweating a little bit from our hot sauce show
I'm
that
still
we did 30
hot
minutes ago.
like no other.
I
do have some final things for you guys. NBA news, guys. There's a trade that looks like it went on today. Hang on. Actually, just an hour ago. Houston Rockets are sending Christian Wood to the Dallas Mavericks for Boban, Sterling Brown, Trey Burke, Marquise Chris, and the number 26 pick, all for Christian Wood.
I'm okay with it. I mean, Christian Wood is kind of what they need. That's one of the reasons why they lost that last series is because they can't protect the rim. And so I think Christian Wood's a great rim protector. Yeah, I mean, they gave up quite a few players there, but it's not like this blockbuster trade where they're going to give up the farm for a mediocre player. I think Christian Wood can definitely help them out in the future.
All right. And then there's something else here that we'll have to keep an eye out throughout this offseason. Looks like Daryl Morey of the 76ers said that to be a fan of Thibault, who's heading in the final year of the rookie deal, Thibault will be eligible for a 5-year, $186 million extension this summer, which is unlikely that he'll get that extension. So we'll have to keep paying. You know, this could be a guy that could be maybe a son by the time we know about it. Around that, right?
5-year, 186.
When
Can we just do the math on that really quick? That seems like a lot for a guy that only plays on one side of the court. I'm pretty sure they're not going to pay that.
I wouldn't pay that. And then Sam Cassell, former player for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Sam
Cassell, wow. The hot sauce.
You were thinking of Matt Castle.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hey,
that's your favorite quarterback.
Yeah. Vernon Maxwell reported that Utah Jazz are interviewing Sam Cassell right now, so that's pretty huge. I'd be interested to see if he gets a job. That'd be a different transition, I feel, from going Quinn Snyder to Sam Cassell.
Well, I think Sam Cassell would be a great coach for that organization.
Gotcha. And then quick couple football news.
Are we ESPN now, Tanner?
Hey, I just want to get your thoughts and opinions.
ESPN News.
No.
ESPN
We are ENPS.
ESPN News.
So Caleb James, for another note from minicamp, said Isaiah Pacheco, however you want to say it, stood out the most in his opinion. He got the first crack at returning kickoffs, and he also was in the mix with both the ones and the twos, mostly catching passes out of the backfield. Could be a red zone guy for us coming into play.
I hope he averages more than 3.9 yards per carry like he did at Rutgers. So that's all my.
That's so scary. And then finally, my Tyreek Hill that I didn't get to talk to you guys about. Robert Griffin III did say Tyreek Hill has gone full Terrell Owens meme. That's my quarterback for his guy Tua. And Tyreek knows Tua isn't Mahomes. Tyreek knows that. Two different styles of play. Mahomes has certified greatness. Tua is accurate, but Cheetah is just tired of people going in on his quarterback, and he's just trying to get the respect that he deserves.
So right quick, guys, before we end the show, I want your opinion on this. Are Tyreek Hill's best years behind him with the Chiefs, or will his best years be with the Miami Dolphins?
They're behind him.
I agree.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying that it's going to be a catastrophic drop like crypto. I'm saying that it's his best year he's ever had in his career already happened.
Yeah, I agree with you. Tanner?
I think there's still to come. I think that going into an offense without Patrick Mahomes,
you like older players that are likely to blow a hamstring.
I like a guy that's going to be
wipe it all over their dick.
I like a guy that's going to be the number one certain receiver for Miami. You got Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle isn't going to be your main guy. Tyreek Hill's going to be the main guy who can play backfield.
What are you, a Dolphins fan now? What the fuck?
Kinda.
Oh, good.
Go Lord. Hill. I think Tyreek Hill's going to be. I think he's going to have a great year this year. I think he might have his best year yet.
You believe in Tua. You believe in Tua, don't you?
Tanner, Tyreek Hill can have a great year. The question is he going to have a better years with the Dolphins than he did with the Chiefs?
So we're talking how many years?
The next 4 years. Is his next 4 years with the Dolphins better than the last 4 years with the Chiefs?
So what I'm saying is he could explode.
No,
He could have an all-time
he
year
could.
this one year and then shit the bed. All of his years are still behind him.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say if the last 2 years we look at, he has a better year. The next 2 years, I wouldn't go 4 years.
Okay.
But hopefully he gets more targets because apparently he was underutilized with the Chiefs. So we'll see how that goes for all them. So.
Tua. It's all about Tua, man. Can he make it happen, or is he gonna
He's just showing support for his guy who needs built up. You know,
I trust Mike McDaniels. I'll say that.
I do too, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
All right,
Are you done, Tanner?
I'm
Is
done.
ESPN news finally over?
Actually, guys,
Can we watch some hockey?
Hang on,
Can we watch some NHL right now?
there's some breaking news.
I don't think we need
The
any breaking
mass
news.
potential lineup has Jalen Brunson, Dinwiddie, Christian Wood, and Dwight Powell in the mix.
Dwight Powell sucks.
They're gonna beat the
I
Suns
don't
next
care
year,
about
dude.
that.
Again,
Dwight Powell sucks.
you
All
okay
right.
there, Mike?
I'm done talking because you guys kept going on about NBA. I'm over it.
All right, we'll wrap this up, guys. Here, catch us here Saturday. I'll be on Let's Talk Sports at 11, sometime in the morning. Usually it's 11. Monday night, we'll be wrapping up our NBA segment. JG hopefully is able to get on as we wrap up the NBA Finals.
Go Warriors.
Nick Botkins with the Botkins Show will be back as well. There might be more to come than just basketball come Monday after we wrap up the finals. And then, of course, you can catch us here Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central. We'll be live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube every Wednesday. So catch us then.
Yep. I'll see you guys on the next one.
Buffoons, we're out.
See you guys.